The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Buffalo Bills are 3-0.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills defeated the Miami Dolphins 31-21 and improved to 3-0 on the season. It was a hard-fought win. The Dolphins didn't come to town and roll over. The Bills had to earn it. It was really pretty at times, and at other times it was not. But the Bills made the Dolphins pay for some critical mistakes and came away with a 10-point win. 3-0. It's a good spot to be, folks. So we'll do what we do here on these post-game reaction shows. I'll give you the things that I liked. We'll talk about the things that I didn't like. And we'll touch on what's next for the Bills and this podcast. When it comes to things that I liked, I'd like to begin with Josh Allen. 22 of 28, 213 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Had 4 runs for 25 yards. I thought he was so sharp mentally in this game. And I thought he did a masterful job of taking what the defense gave him. I think there's going to be some frustrations out there that maybe the Bills' passing game wasn't more aggressive down the field, or that they couldn't really take advantage of a very underwhelming Dolphins secondary. But I thought Josh Allen was masterful when it came to the mental side of this game. Early on, there was some opportunities, and I thought the Bills did well to take advantage of some opportunities, but eventually the Dolphins just played soft shell zone defense, right? Like a lot of cover 2, maybe a good amount of cover 4. Point being is flooding zones, keeping a roof on top of the defense, and taking away big play opportunities down the field. And I thought Josh did a wonderful job of taking what the defense gave him, not forcing anything, staying patient, being mature. And you're watching this game play out, and if you're aware of how Miami's spacing the field and how they're playing defense, you know that the Bills would need a yards after catch play to move the ball and get the points that they needed to get out of that game with a win. And whether it was the catch and run by Dalton Kincaid, a couple of catch and runs by Dalton Kincaid, or, of course, the Khalil Shakir touchdown late to put the Bills ahead, they knew what they needed to get done. And then when Josh was needing a big completion, more down the field, thought he did a very good job of moving within the pocket, keeping his eyes down the field, and then letting guys declare themselves available in zone and taking the pitch and catch opportunities like you saw with the Elijah Moore completion late in the game. So, yeah, maybe you thought that Josh Allen would throw the ball for 1,000,000 yards and 1,000,000 touchdowns against the Dolphins because their defense is no good. And in some ways, that's absolutely true. But looking at how Miami played this game, I thought that Josh was really mature and made good decisions with the football. And obviously, you're talking about a Bills offense that scored 31 points and won the game by 10. I think he did the smart right thing and didn't do anything on his behalf that put Miami in a position where they could capitalize off of a Bills mistake. It was the exact opposite. The Bills capitalized off of Dolphins mistakes. 3 really fun touchdowns. The first one to Dalton Kincaid looks like Josh was able to step up in the pocket and hit Dalton in the honey hole in a cover 2 look. Nice catch and run. Heck of a play by Josh and Dalton Kincaid. Then you get the Jackson Hawes flick, right? Josh Allen gets outside of structure to the left, and he's kind of got an opportunity to either run it in or flick it. And Rasul Douglas, I think, was the outside corner, kind of stays over top of Josh, and that opens the window for Josh to flick it for Jackson Hawes' first ever touchdown, which was a cool play. And then late in the game, you get the Khalil Shakir touchdown that I don't know that was a high degree of difficulty throw for Josh Allen, but understanding the circumstance, getting the ball into the hands of your best yards after catch player when you know that's what you're going to need based on the defense that was presented to you. Shakir with the big catch and run, and, hat tip to Dalton Kincaid and Tyrell Shavers for some big blocks on that scoring play. So Josh, 3 touchdowns, 213 yards passing, 25 yards rushing. Very efficient game. Very efficient game. I thought it was the type of game he needed to play under those circumstances. Dalton Kincaid continues to show up, 5 catches on 6 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown, and he could have had 3 touchdowns in this game. You would love for him to – it was only 1 target that he didn't get a catch on, and it was the kind of deeper throw into the back of the end zone, and that safety got his hand in there late. You'd love to see Dalton just, win that ball, but good route, good throw by Josh. Unfortunately, that one was incomplete, but 5 really good plays from Dalton in terms of passing game contributions. Some big catch and run. He made a big impact in this game. How about Elijah Moore? Had 1 rush for 11 yards, 2 catches for 30 yards, and it was all very timely, just like it was last week for Elijah Moore. Had his catch, it was 2nd and 16 there at the end of the game. He had the huge catch, finding a spot in zone, becoming available. Josh climbs, gets him the football, catch and run, and get a first down. I mean, you're behind the sticks, 2nd and 16. You needed a first down, get out of there with a win, and Elijah Moore was a big part of that. He's been extremely clutch. It's funny. I mean, Elijah Moore has become the player you thought Curtis Samuel was going to become. And obviously the Bills will need to sort that piece out at some point, but it's nice to see him carving out a role and it being meaningful. Even Tyrell Shavers with a couple of catches in this game that resulted in first downs. Khalil Shakir, 4 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. The go-ahead touchdown that the Bills needed late in the game. It's good to see that, right? See him make some clutch plays and do his yards after the catch thing. How about James Cook? 19 rushes, 108 yards, and a touchdown, 3 catches in this game. Over 100 yards from scrimmage all 3 games so far this year. Back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances, 4 touchdowns on the year. The guy just produces week after week after week after week after week after week, right? And the touchdowns, it's just unbelievable. You kind of looked at the splits of his career and, percentage of carries, team carries inside the goal, the 5 or whatever it is. And it doesn't tell a story that leads to the touchdown production that James Cook is getting, but he is continuing to produce and continuing to prove Brandon Beane right for signing him to that deal. And it looks like right now he's on pace for almost 350 touches this year. We'll see how that stabilizes or how it doesn't stabilize, but James Cook's obviously been a huge part of this offense, and he's been highly productive all 3 games to start the year. He's a star. He's a star running back. There's just no way around it. The guy's a star running back. Shout out to the tight ends. The blocking that those tight ends give this football team is really, really cool. And that 13 and 12 personnel packages that the Bills have, the 2 and 3 tight end stuff where they can run the ball, it's a lot to deal with. Think about all those extra gaps that defenses have to deal with. You have good blockers. You have a good back in Cook. You have Josh Allen and the threat of Josh Allen as a runner. There's just a lot of stress that this team can put on a defense and them stopping the run. And, James Cook's feasting and, James Cook's, he's not just feasting off of good blocking. I mean, the guy is making plays, right? Yards after contact is there. I'm continuing to be blown away by the overall arc of James Cook from, shaky pass catching back as a rookie to focal point of one of the league's best rushing offenses and one of the most dynamic zone runners, one of the best between the tackle runners, smaller back that runs bigger with physicality. He's a dude. He is a dude.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
31-21 the final in Buffalo. Kyle Krabs and Jeff Scanina. One of those nights for the Dolphins. All that promise, all that hard work. You can't wait to start. You got that chip on your shoulder, ready to come out and just decimate the Buffalo Bills, guys. And I thought the Miami Dolphins, let's start here. Kyle, Jeff, and Jeff, I want to start with you on this because we're talking about a team that was really under the gun, right? At 0-2, they didn't show anything. The defense allowed scores on 12 straight possessions to start the season. The Patriots beat them, and they let Drake May do it. All kinds of things coming into this game. Fire Mike McDaniel. Tyreek Hill's not happy. The first thing that I wanted to see tonight was this team come out with some fire, with some intensity, with some focus. The fire and the intensity were great, and the focus was better.
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, just from the opening kickoff, they had a great return to set up the offense, get the offense going, and they went down, scored on their first drive, which is a huge, morale boost for that team for the situation they've gone through the last 2 weeks of not scoring early, and you're giving not getting 3 and outs. And I thought that it was a great way to start the game. And you just wish the defense would have came out and got a 3 and out, and then it could have been a different start for the defense. But again, when you're playing in Buffalo on a Thursday night game against a great Buffalo offense, it's kind of hard when they get the juice of the fans behind them to get a 3 and out on their first drive.
Well, and Z, I want to piggyback off of that where the first 2 weeks, the Dolphins offense blinked and they were down multiple scores, right? And I think the Bills almost did them a favor when they won the coin toss and then deferred to the second half. I've been hoping that, especially after the week 1 debacle where they just had no rhythm. And then going into the New England game, hey, we didn't run the ball a whole lot in week 1 because we got down 3 scores in the first 18 minutes. And then we were down 12-0 in the second contest. You showed some balance on that opening possession. And I know Mike McDaniel really likes the strategy of having the first possession of the second half because then I kind of know what the first 30 minutes have looked like. And it changes how I manage the start of the second half of the game. But if you'd have given up another opening possession and they'd gone down and scored on you and you were trailing right off the jump, you can't help but wonder what the play calling would have looked like because for all of that momentum that they found running the ball, it again felt tonight like they were a little intermittent on how often they were calling their run plays. They had that successful opening drive. I think they went, 3 and out each of the next 2 possessions and had 7 yards of offense or whatever it ended up being before they put together another drive at the end of the half. So, agree with you wholeheartedly as far as kind of the start to the game, the opening script I really like. They showed some more balance. There's a run game to look at here that I'm sure we're going to put under the microscope as far as the big back, the young back, Ollie Gordon, what he provided for them for some power. I like that element of what the Dolphins did on Thursday night.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon was great, man. And Jeff, to Kyle's point, right, that opening drive, 10 plays, 47 yards. It wasn't pretty by any means. It was dink dunk, and Tua didn't even go over 100 yards passing until the second half. But 10 plays, 6 runs, 4 passes. They score. They set the tone with the run game, and it really started with Eskridge on the kickoff return, guys. 54 yards to get it started on the road. Give him the short field, and you come out and you just score. You punch him in the mouth and you score, Jeff. And that, to me, set the tone for the game to where the Dolphins were able to stay in it until the end because they set the tone with that physicality early. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Again, as a player, when you start a game off like that with a nice big return and you set up your offense and they go down and they hard-nose it down or they get some nice runs, guys are running hard, making their blocks. Yes, dinking, the little dink throws that he has, those are run plays basically, in that offense. So that's just another way of getting the guy out in space to make a play. And they did it and they got it down there,
It just, you know, I wish they could have backed it up with some more other points in between those two good drives, you know, to cap off that half.
Yeah, and Kyle, the defense played better tonight, but man, they could not stop Josh Allen in that first half. At one point, he was 12 for 12 off play action, 18 of 20 overall. He's mastered that offense, mastered the play action. They have the best running game he's had in his career in Buffalo. And in typical Josh Allen fashion, he's spreading the ball all over the field. So tough job for the defense, no doubt. But with the offense setting the tone with the physicality early, the way the defense just kind of let Buffalo keep going right down the field on them, especially in the first half, that's demoralizing, and it's hard to keep up with that, especially on the road.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if I was watching the Dolphins and Bills playing an AFC matchup or like an old school Pac-12 matchup or maybe a
Right?
Big 12 defensive matchup where a lot of air, right? And I think that's the thing when you get Buffalo backed up there towards the end of the game and they have that critical catch and run opportunity to really kind of blow right before the 2-minute warning there at the end of the game, kind of put the game on ice. You still see those moments, and I think that comes with brand new players in the secondary. And Jason Marshall goes down with a hamstring in this game. They got Cornell Armstrong, who was on the practice squad and was out of the league last year, is playing nickel for him. I think they really got to look at that back end and ask themselves some hard questions. I know Iafetu Melifonwu is dealing with an injury as well, but they got a young 5th round rookie in Dante Trader, who I'm excited to get into the tape and see what he did with the coach's film, because it seemed like he was really flying around out there. Ashton Davis had a nice play in the end zone on a target to Dalton Kincaid to break up a pass. So like these little incremental victories, and nobody at 0-3 wants to talk about moral victories. And I get it, because the start of the season's been a flop. But from that perspective with the defense, you're going against a guy who historically owns you anyway. And then you're trying to mix and match your coverages. And he also, you mentioned some of the stats and efficiencies that he had. He started 12 for 12 against zone defense as well. When the Dolphins played zone, the ball didn't hit the ground. Like, what are you going to do? And then that was that critical play that set up the first down that really iced the game, was another zone drop where everybody on defense was flying out of there, and they left the sit route right over top of the ball wide open, and it's a big catch and run.
Yeah, and even when he misses, it's because the receiver drops it or the DB breaks it up. Almost every single throw is right on the button from Josh Allen. And then you see Tua try to throw the ball down the field, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I know we're going to talk about Zach Sealer with the roughing the punter roughing the punter kicker penalty down the stretch. Excuse me, guys. Roughing the punter down the stretch, Zach Sealer. So that was a killer penalty, right? And then Tua throws the pick. And last week it was the 4th down sack. And he had the drop snap tonight as well. So we're going to get to the mistakes made by Sealer and Tua, but Mike McDaniel had this team ready to play. We can talk about, and we will get to Sealer and we will get to Tua, but Mike McDaniel had this team ready to play last night. And Jeff, I talked about it last week on the postcast, and it was one of the things that really stood out to me after last week's game. All that talk about get rid of Mike McDaniel, fire the coaching staff, they're a bunch of bums. This culture with the Dolphins that has come to be ever since Don Shula. And I remember I'm covering the team back then. I was just starting my career in Miami, and everybody wants to run Don Shula out of town. And then Jimmy Johnson's down the road in the Keys. And, we got Jimmy Johnson. We don't need the old man anymore. Jimmy didn't have a ton of success, but then you look back at the Jimmy years and you go, oh, my God, I wish we'd had the Jimmy years back right now. But every time something like this happens, the 0-2 start, and I get it. It's inexcusable, a lot of the things that were happening, Z. But Mike McDaniel had this team ready to play last week, and he had them ready to play this week. There are stupid penalties still, lack of focus, guys going downfield, things like that. But you can tell that they are not a team that is poorly coached.
No, it every week it's gotten better. The execution is getting better and the timing's getting better. Again, it's the first month of the season. Teams are just still trying to find their way through it, because a lot of these guys don't practice a lot in preseason anymore, and they're not in preseason games. So like on offense, the timing's off between most wide receivers and the quarterback. Tonight, it seems like it was a lot better than it was even last week. And everybody's getting better and better and better. And Mike, I thought he had those guys well prepared on a short week, after a tough loss at home, to get those guys bought in again to come back out on a Thursday night game. I thought they did well.
Yeah, and Kyle, I know that you talk a lot about this during the week. day by day with your Dolphins podcast. It's obviously something that Fins fans are super concerned about. What are your thoughts about what I said about McDaniel, about the coaching overall, about the culture within the Dolphins fan group that has led to every time something starts to go wrong, fire everybody and blow it up?
Well, it's I'm sitting here shaking my head. You mentioned the ineligible man downfield penalties that made me want to pull my hair out tonight, brother. I mean, it's the hidden yardage of it. Keon Smith, it's the hidden yardage. It's not a 5-yard penalty. There was a 10-yard gain, and you move it back 5 yards from the original line. It's 15-yard difference. The second one with Jonas Savaiinaea on the completion to Julian Hill, that was 21 yards difference between the gain versus moving it back from the original line. I mean, you do go in to score touchdowns on both of those drives, so you want to be fair about it and say, well, they survived both of them. But, man, like, Savaiinaea is 8 yards downfield run blocking somebody on this pull.
Kyle.
And it drove me nuts, Z. It drove me nuts.
I'm going to say one thing. In about 4 weeks, you're going to see those linemen 15 yards downfield. Okay, that's a penalty that's called in the first few weeks because they're like, oh, we're going to clean it up. You know, the refs get yelled at. We're going to clean it up, and then it goes away. And you're going to see dudes like halfway down the field blocking on those plays. I guarantee. I'll bet you on that one, Kyle.
It's like last year with the Jawan Taylor lining up off the line of scrimmage, illegal formations, offensive offside stuff that they called. Taylor must have got called 5-6 times for it, the opening game for Kansas City last year.
Yeah,
right?
And then it goes away. Then these guys are like, it's like punt protection. They're like the fullback back there.
It is interesting.
You get the illegal. I was just going to say you got the illegal block on the kickoff return too. That was a killer, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's those little things that you can't do playing this team that you seem to do every time you play this team. And Miami in years past, when they've won more games than obviously what we're sitting at with 0-3 this year, they've leaned on their talent and been able to overcome that. But this is the well-coached football team that you can't go up against and have a 3rd and 5 and drop the shotgun snap and then try to run for a first down and pick up 3 yards. And then you have to punt after you just traded blows on the first 2 possessions. You can't have these kinds of procedural penalties. You can't expect to do that and lose the margins because they force you to play perfectly. And they played efficiently. I didn't necessarily love the flow of the game from Miami's perspective, and they bailed you out with the missed field goal that prevented it from becoming a 2-score game way earlier in the game script. But I liked the fight. I liked the effort. I liked the strain. I liked the way the defense got better in the second half. I like some of the procedural changes on the offensive side of the ball. Right? How many times were we breaking the huddle with 19 seconds left on it versus last week? It was 7, 6, motion. Nope, come back. We're going to kill it. We just got to snap the ball. I'm going to clap the hands for the cadence and try to get the snap. And there's 2 seconds left. And you didn't get a chance to look at the defense at all. I like those changes. I really like some of the short yardage changes. I mean, you had a 3rd and 1 for +8. You had a 3rd and goal for a touchdown. You had a 3rd and 1 for +4. You had a 3rd and goal for 3-yard touchdown. You had a 2nd and 1 for 16 yards, a 4th and 4 for 15, a 3rd and 4 for 13. And those are Ollie Gordon, Jalen Waddle touches. Like, I like some things that they did that address some of the concerns that we have, but we're not putting the full picture together. And the one that really stings me, like I mentioned at the top of the show tonight, was that it's your captains that made the mistakes that were the backbreakers in this game.
Yeah, and you throw in the Sealer penalty and the Tua penalty. Let's not forget Jordan Brooks on that sack too. 2nd and goal becomes a 1st and goal. Not maybe as costly as what Sealer did or what Tua did, but the mistakes are killing them. I mean, they could have won this game. They had a shot. Moral victories aren't good enough in the NFL, guys. And Kyle, with a perfect segue to our next segment. Segment 1 is in the books. We can only get better from here. It's your Dolphin Squad Show. Jeff Scanina, call him Z, Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. I am Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. So much more to come. Kyle gave us the segue for segment number 2. We're going to talk Tua. We're going to talk the offense. We're going to talk the play calling, which was so much better tonight. They were great on 3rd and 4th down. So many things to build on offensively, but drop snap, interception, costly mistakes by penalties, offensive linemen down the field, things like that to clean up and probably shouldn't be happening. And we'll have Jeff tell us why they're still happening when we come back. It's your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jim Greasehaber, call me Grease, Kyle Krabs, and Jeff Scanina keeping it going. Dolphins dropped to 0-3, 31-21, the final with the loss at Buffalo.
A real tough game for the Illini on Saturday night got potentially a whole lot tougher.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Indiana and Illinois. It's a top 20 matchup in Bloomington, and it's going to be awesome.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, and it is a Locked On College crossover between Hoosiers and Illini. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Sonny Verma, host of Locked On Illini. We are your go-to spots for all things Indiana and Illinois athletics. And man, we have hyped it up all week long. We've waited all off-season long and even the first few weeks of the season as well. Sonny, Indiana and Illinois, it's the biggest game in college football coming up tomorrow night, and I cannot wait.
You're absolutely right. Not only is it the biggest game for our fan bases, the media is paying attention to it. You know, there's a lot of pushback that ESPN even got from game day, picking a 1 and 2 Florida team to showcase. And people are wondering, why aren't you in Bloomington? And, you know, even personally for me, I've been watching Illini football for over 20 years. I can't remember wanting to win a game as much as I want this Illini team to do on Saturday night.
It seems like that's where the fan bases are too, right? I mean, these are two schools that have had their beef on the hardwood, sure. But in football, I mean, this hasn't been all that crazy of a rivalry historically. But, Sonny, you couldn't tell the fans that. The Indiana fans, the Illinois fans, even some other Big Ten folks are really getting involved in this game.
So the thing is, Jacob, like following the Big Ten as long as I have, this is the Indiana basketball fans and the Illinois basketball fans having a chance to care about their football teams. You know, I mean this respectfully. The Indiana basketball side hasn't exactly been holding up their end of the bargain the last few years. So they've kind of laid a little dormant. And it's not like they had a good football team to really cheer for it and emotionally invest themselves in. Now they do. Now that Curt Cignetti is in town, the Indiana fan base has woken up from their long nap. And, you know, again, they're just going back and forth with this Illinois fan base who, for the last couple of years, you know, the job Brett Bielema has done has been amazing as well. So it's just two very high-powered, rabid fan bases being able to take out their anger on each other, which they've always done historically on the basketball side. It just hasn't really happened on the football side. I think I saw a stat that these two teams haven't met as top 25 teams since 1950. That tells you. I mean, Haley's Comet comes by more often than Indiana and Illinois meet as top 25 teams. But hopefully this is not going to be the last time in the near future. I really like the trajectory of both our programs right now. And I think the next time we meet could be a lot sooner than 75 years.
And what's fascinating about this matchup, and we're going to talk about the college football playoff implications and the different matchups. Yes, the quarterbacks, but beyond that as well. And of course, make our final predictions later on in the show. But people in Bloomington, and I think this is true, they're calling this the biggest home game in the history of Memorial Stadium, where Indiana will be playing host Illinois on Saturday night. They're calling this the biggest home game in Memorial Stadium history, Sonny. I mean, that doesn't come lightly. Indiana has had some big games at home. They've played big games on the football field, not consistently, but periodically throughout the time. I mean, there's a lot riding on this with all the things we're going to get to, but just from the media buildup and you and I talking all week, I mean, these fans are ready to go, but I think the teams are probably just ready to get this thing underway too.
No doubt about it. Brett Bielema said in his post-game press conference last weekend that, or no, it was on Monday actually, that they had started scouting Indiana in springtime. And so the coaching staff, they're all ready for this game too. They want to get this done and over with. Obviously, they've invested a lot of their time when it comes to this Indiana football game, just like Curt Cignetti has. I'm shocked. I don't know about you, Jacob, but seeing Brett Bielema and Curt Cignetti being so respectful towards one another in those press conferences, when these two coaches usually don't mind throwing in a jab here and there. To me, I talked about it on today's episode of Locked On Illini, yesterday's episode, shows me how they understand the magnitude of this game. Neither coach is trying to give the other one any bulletin board type of material, any extra motivation to win this game?
I think part of it is a mutual respect, yes, but part of it might just be both of them are scared to death to play this game because of how good the opponent is. I mean, from my angle and just talking about the Illinois matchup, I mean, Illinois is a really good football team. Do I think Indiana's better? Yeah, I do. But Illinois is still a really, really good team. And look, if the roles were reversed, if Indiana was going to Illinois, I would be worried out of my mind. Being at home is such a difference maker. And look, I'm not trying to say that Indiana football home environments have been the best thing in college football. This isn't going to Penn State. This isn't going to Tuscaloosa. This isn't playing in Austin, playing against Texas or whatever. But being at home is a big deal. And Indiana's going to have a ton of fans there. And I'm just glad it's in Indiana versus Illinois. And I'm sure that adds a bunch of the stress for you and Brett Bielema and the entire team having to make the trip to Bloomington.
You're exactly right. I would feel a lot more confident in my prediction if this game was in Champaign, but if it's in Bloomington, it's one of those where obviously Indiana, the administration has made a big deal out of wearing red. It's going to be an absolute show, but the nice thing is I'm not the one playing, right? Brett Bielema had these guys ready for a very similar atmosphere last year at Nebraska. Nebraska was undefeated. Illinois was undefeated. It was a night game. I believe that read out as well. Over 100,000 people in that stadium. And ultimately, Luke Altmaier made the throws he needed to in that sort of environment to win that game. And so I'm hoping the atmosphere with the amount of people that were returning from last year's game, that it's not going to have a major effect. But again, ultimately, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. So you never know how they're ultimately going to respond.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet in the moment, whether it's a prop, whether it's a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Brock Purdy at practice Thursday. Is he going to start for the San Francisco 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, John Lynch said on Thursday morning, Croc, that a big hurdle for Brock Purdy would be after a limited practice session on Wednesday, if he'd be able to go back-to-back days and be able to practice Thursday. And he said they'd find out a little bit later in the day. And so later in the day, Thursday, and we have found out that Brock Purdy indeed did practice on Thursday, Croc. And I was skeptical earlier on in the week. I thought Kyle Shanahan was doing his thing where he didn't want to say too much and was hoping his opponent would, be spending practice hours on multiple quarterbacks and give him a little bit of an edge. And we've seen Kyle Shanahan be coy about these things in the past and maybe, get people feeling a certain way about whether a guy was going to play or not. And then he ends up playing or ends up not playing. In this case, if Brock Purdy is practicing, Croc, he's going to play, right?
Yeah, so I guess that timeline of 2 to 5 weeks, which was weird to begin with, looks like it was a little off and it's just 1 week. Or it was, hey, Mac Jones looked kind of good. I want to quiet any random stupid talk and get out there as fast as possible. Either way, I think it's good that he's back out there. Obviously, if he's healthy. And I don't think there's any chance they rush anything with Brock Purdy. You're better off if he needs an extra week or 2 or 3 to make sure that toe is right, you give him that time. So I don't believe they're rushing it at all. But, hey, man, he's healthy. You're a starting quarterback. Go lead us to another victory.
Yeah, that's the only thing. If he's good, then he's good, right? If he's not good, do not rush him back. And that could be a real big problem because, again, you don't want to see the thing that happened with Joe Burrow. And now all of a sudden you need surgery and it gets worse. And now you're out 3 months instead of 3 weeks for Brock Purdy. So, I think he's trending closer to playing than not if he indeed was practicing. I want to go to Matt Barrows here, who did report on it. And, at this point of the season, media is not really able to see exactly what practices look like and what players are doing. beyond the early portion of practice, but he was practicing and seemed to be doing slightly more than he did the day before, according to Matt Barrows, when Brock Purdy was limited. A few more injury notes here for the San Francisco 49ers. Trent Williams, who's not been doing a lot of practicing himself, dealing with a knee injury, warmed up on a side field in uniform. So possibly join practice a little bit later. This is the early portion, again, that the media is able to see. Spencer Burford was on an exercise bike when practice began. Austin Pleasance, the other offensive tackle, likely will be in uniform Sunday for the first time this year if Spencer Burford cannot go. And the 49ers did do some roster movement at offensive tackle just to prepare for Spencer Burford being out, and Trent Williams obviously already injured as well. So they might be, if something happens to Trent Williams during the game, you could already be on left tackle number 3 potentially. So that's where the 49ers are there. Fullback Kyle Juszczyk, who was injured in the last game, week 2, and Saran Neal were in blue no contact jerseys, but they were practicing and they were progressing through concussion protocol. And no practice yet for Jawan Jennings with the shoulder and ankle injuries this week. And it's not clear. I don't know if the ankle is related to the calf he was dealing with before or not, or it's just a completely new injury. But he was working with trainers on the side. Yetur Gross-Matos was on hand at practice, and Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey practicing after their days of rest on Wednesday. So that is the practice report right now, which is mostly good news for the San Francisco 49ers, all things considered, especially with the way things went over the course of the summer. And really, obviously, the big one is Brock Purdy. And again, don't rush him back. If there is no possibility of him injuring that turf toe worse, then that's interesting. Playing on turf last week too, right? It's called turf toe for a reason. I think Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy both got turf toe on turf. Can we get rid of turf, guys? Can we stop with the turf? We can have grass everywhere we need it. Let's play on grass. Can we go? Can we start there, please? But yeah, Brock Purdy looking like more going to play.
Yeah, at lower levels, the kids hate playing on grass because it's not good grass. It's definitely not that NFL grass. Like the NFL grass is as thin as a sheet of glass. I mean, it's thin, it's fast, it's well maintained. So a lot of players actually prefer to play on grass field as opposed to high school. My kids, we practiced on the grass sometimes because there's the girls flag football going on. So sometimes when they're playing games in the stadium, we practice on this grass field. One of my players got up and was like, "Hey guys, we're out here on the grass. We have to battle through adversity." They look at playing on grass or practicing on grass as having to go through some adversity. So that's how much they hate it. But NFL, I think those players all prefer to play on grass.
You need a better grounds crew, man. I'd love playing on grass. It's soft. It's more fun to be tackled on grass. You can get a little bit muddy. I liked bad weather football when I was playing. In fact, we'd get together every time it rained. It didn't rain a lot in Visalia, California. So when it did, we were like, let's go. We're going to the field and we're going to get muddy and we're going to play tackle football, without pads. We're just going to get together and have fun. You play faster though on turf. And so when you got those young ligaments, those young joints, you probably feel fast and you like the traction that you get on that turf.
I think the big thing is just kind of injuries that occur on turf, which is just more than what happens on natural grass. And the 49ers, if you guys remember, you go back to 2014, 2015, the 49ers grass was a huge issue, even leading up to the Super Bowl. Now, I feel like Jet York was trying to when I say Super Bowl, 49ers weren't playing in the Super Bowl. The Broncos and the Carolina Panthers were playing in the Super Bowl. But I feel like Jet York was trying everything possible to get that grass together. And I don't know if it's something with the soil there in the South Bay or what, but it took a while for them to get it right. I have not heard complaints about the grass in recent years.
Yeah, I remember that. They could not figure it out. And somewhere along the way, they got that right. And they got it all figured out with their the new grass over there at Levi's Stadium. So Brock,
did they get it right, or did people just find something different to complain about?
That's possibly it. They're like, you know what? The sun's more annoying than the grass. Let's talk about the sun. It's too sunshiny in the South Bay, and there's no.
I think the whole one, you had the Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick quarterback battle. Then you had Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. And I think all of that distracted the fan base and took their attention off of the real issue, which was the grass field and guys not being able to keep their footing.
That's what it was. Jed York's like, oh, thank goodness we've got all these other controversies. So now I don't talk about my grass field anymore. You feel good about Mac Jones if he has to play, though. I think that was one of the big lessons from week 2 is just knowing, like, look, and the 49ers probably feeling, and Brock Purdy might feel a little bit of pressure to be like, look, I don't want my backup quarterback to string too many of these great games together and then get everybody talking too much, right? This is my team. If I'm good, I'm going to go out there and play. So make sure that you save him from himself and make sure that there's not more damage done. But if Brock Purdy's good, then he's good and he's going to play in this game. And if not, then I think you still feel okay about your chances to win some games while he's out with the backup quarterback and Mac Jones, who looked for the most part very sharp in week 2.
A big thing that people pointed to was just the O-line was better. So that's why we saw the improved play from Mac Jones, maybe, not as many turnover worthy throws and not turning the ball over at all, at least through the air. Obviously he fumbled, but so that's a big thing. A key to victory. All right. And I know we'll get to it on the next segment, but 49ers offensive line, can they play as well as they did last game? That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, particularly with the pass protection. They've been a better run blocking than pass blocking line under Kyle Shanahan for the most part. And, clearly that's what he identifies in the movement and the style of players that he brings in and get the ball out quick and do other things to help out the pass protection side of things on the offensive line. But the pass protection held up quite nice in week 2 for the San Francisco 49ers against the New Orleans Saints. Can they keep that going? And what's been good is the run defense, and specifically some rookies looking better and better and getting their footing, stacking days.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers.
Auburn's offensive line must win in the trenches against Oklahoma's defensive line. That includes setting the tone with the rushing attack. That includes Jackson Arnold running the ball, Damari Austin, we assume, will play, Jeremiah Cobb, paving a way for these guys. It also means winning in the pass protection battle. Keep Jackson Arnold upright. The biggest knock against him is he holds onto the football a little too long. Okay, fine. Offensive line, help out your quarterback. The big part of this is consistently move the football 3 or 4 yards every play. Don't get behind the sticks. If you can create long, sustainable drives, you've got a chance to go on the road and win. Sustainable drives are great for ball control, obviously. It keeps John Mateer, the leader for the Heisman Trophy, on the sideline right now. And also, it's tough to be in person watching your defense just give up first down, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, give that up over and over and over again. It's a good way to take the crowd out of it. So offensive line, this is your battle. If they can do that, they've got a chance to win this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You control the line of scrimmage and run the ball effectively to set up whatever Auburn wants to do in the RPO game. Man, if Auburn can sustain those drives, the 6-minute, 7-minute drives, I'm gonna. That's not mine. I agree with you, absolutely. But I want to enhance your offensive line, Keep. I could say that with what Oklahoma's offensive line is rumored to be health-wise, just the lines of scrimmage. Auburn can really, really take advantage from a defensive line standpoint if Oklahoma's offensive line is as battered as we think. So if Auburn's offensive line plays well, controls clock, runs the ball, and Oklahoma's struggles, what a tilt that will be. Auburn has to have 2 turnovers. 2 turnovers. And they can win the turnover battle 2-1. I'm cool with that, but they have to have at least 2 turnovers. It could be interceptions, it could be fumbles.
I'm going to say if Auburn generates 2 turnovers, they win the turnover battle.
Yeah, because of the way they've been holding on to the football. They've been doing a really, really good job not throwing it to the other guys, holding on to it from a fumbling standpoint. So get 2 turnovers, and I think that's a really, really big key in beating Oklahoma.
Yeah. I won't push back on that. That's obviously going to be crucial. I think that becomes significantly more unlikely with Jay Crawford being doubtful. I think that's a big deal, Daryl.
I see a scenario where a Strader or a Pleasant or a Lee has a big interception in a territory that allows Auburn to score. And
it'd be huge.
I just think that, there's been talk about Pleasant wasn't just brought to this team to return kicks, that he will help Auburn at some point in the defensive backfield. That point might have arrived. The initial reports, too, people need to keep in mind with these initial injury reports, the key word there is initial. They change from when they're released Wednesday until they're released right before game time a lot of times.
The fact that he was listed as doubtful and not questionable, I think, is a pretty big deal.
It is, but I've seen people go from doubtful to probable in 3 days before, depending on because we know exactly what it is. It's a knee-on-knee deep bruise. It's not a tear. It's not structural damage. It's not a strain or a sprain. It's a knee-on-knee deep bruise that is causing him a ton of discomfort. A lot can change in 3 days with a bruise. I'm not saying it will.
It's a pain thing. I don't think it's an ability thing.
Right.
It's a pain thing.
And if you can't cut and plant and all that as a corner, I get it. You don't need to be out there playing at 50%.
Correct.
So this is why Auburn went out and got Strader and Pleasant for moments like this.
And look, they've got young guys too. We'll see, if Donovan Starr, Blake Woodby get their names called. We know that Durkin is not afraid to play freshmen. Is that part of it? Or look, Champ Anthony was a pretty solid outside corner. I think he's looked better outside than he has inside. Do you have a few situations where you put him out there?
I just wonder, you have to be a little handsy when you play outside corner. And with that, I don't even know if he's wearing the club, if the cast is
that'll
coming
be
off.
Interesting to see. I agree.
So the hand fighting is important as an outside corner. How much can you do? It'd be fun to hand fight with a club. But, how much of that can you really do?
Bringing a club to a hand fight.
Yeah, bringing a club to a hand fight.
How about that?
Like bringing a gun to a knife fight, right?
There you go. All right. So I'm saying for Auburn to beat Oklahoma, the offensive line must win the battle against Oklahoma's defensive line. Daryl is saying for Auburn to beat Oklahoma, the Auburn Tigers must create 2 turnovers. 2 picks. A fumble and a pick. What do you think is the most likely option there?
I'm saying one of each. I see a strip sack.
That'd be crazy.
Kind of like what happened last week, and then I see a pick.
That would be so.
And no, I won't be weak and wuss out and count turnovers on downs. That's not going to count.
Okay.
I could, but I won't.
No, I think that's the right call. Yep. So if both of those things happen, you got to really like Auburn's chances. So we'll see.
The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet in the moment, whether it's a prop, whether it's a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks.
Unfortunately, Eric, this matchup with Oregon State has moved down in the negative when you talk about the hype. I remember when this was a big game. I remember when it was a ranked matchup just 2 years ago at Autzen Stadium. And yes, Oregon won big, but it was a top 20 matchup. And now here we are. Oregon, according to our friends at FanDuel, is up to 35.5 points on the spread. Yikes. Yikes. How can Oregon State keep this game close in your view?
I'm not convinced they really can. And I guess it's just, and by the way, just to your point that in the lead in there, it kind of stinks for a lot of reasons that this is where we're at. Like I just right before I jumped on, I was completing like a recap of the last 10 Civil Wars, and there were some awesome games in there and a lot of really good players on both teams. I mean, Oregon won, I think 7 out of 10. So I'm not going to say it was like a super even rivalry. And some of those were, did you remember? You don't forget, but Willie Taggart won 69-10 in his only.
I did remember that one. Yeah, I was at that game live and in person at Autzen Stadium. I think if Oregon had wanted to, they could have scored 100.
I think so too. But my point is, like, even though there are moments like that, there was also like a bunch of games that were really, really close, and even games where Oregon State came in unranked. Like I was just looking at the 2015 game. Oregon wins 52-42. Oregon State won 2 games that season. It was not a good team, and they made it really interesting. It was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter before Braylon Addison scored. So I say all that because it feels like we're removed from that era of Oregon State football. I don't expect it to be close. I don't think anybody does. We had our 24/7 Sports affiliate from Oregon State, Angie Machado of Beaver Blitz on, and she was more interested in talking about like what they can do for like the emotions of the fan base and of the players to get ready for the rest of the season, as opposed to like keys to a win. And it kind of stinks we're there. I guess to answer what you actually asked me, rather than just go off and do whatever I just did, I'll say, like, unless Oregon makes a ton of mistakes, and I mean a ton, I mean, you'd need to be 2022 on steroids of just like dropping punts. You know, punter can't handle. You need to do probably what Oregon State's punter did against Fresno State a couple weeks ago.
Oh
frankly.
Man, that play is so bad, so bad.
We were just talking before this about low IQ sports moments. One of the lowest IQ sports moments I have seen in a very long time, and a new one to me. I've never seen a punter.
I've never seen a ball kicked from off the ground on a punt.
No,
I mean at that point you just dive on it, man, and hope your defense can get or kick it sideways out of bounds. He tried to kick it down the field to try and, you know, actually get a punt out of it that nets like 20 yards. And man,
with 20 something seconds in the first half, it's like,
yeah,
force the I don't know. And they might have won that game, by the way. It ended up being in the game. Like,
yep, it was close.
Regardless, so like, unless you're doing a lot of that kind of stuff, I just don't see it. You know, I guess if you wanted to be like glass half full Beaver perspective, like Blake Murphy can throw a ball really far. I don't know if any of Oregon State's receivers are fast enough to separate, especially against the length and size of Oregon's defense, which has given up, I guess.
Trent Walker is a good player.
He's a good player. Is he somebody you expect to separate downfield? Not really.
Not downfield as much. He's a possession guy. He had 8 catches for 68 yards against Oregon last year.
Yeah.
And I think he was mostly covered by Jabbar Muhammad, who was Oregon's best cover corner.
He is absolutely a quality player who would be in an Oregon rotation this year at wide receiver. I have no issue saying that. I just also think, like, in my mind, if you're Oregon State, you're not going to win at the line of scrimmage based upon what they've done. They ran for 8 yards last week. They have like 73 combined rush yards in Power 4 games this year. So you're going to have to throw the ball down the field, and I don't think they have the guys to do that because I don't think they're going to be able to sustain regular drives and move the ball. I think that you'd be disappointed if for consecutive weeks you see that from an Oregon defense that the first 2 weeks look like you're not getting much anything on them. So, yeah, I guess like a bunch of mistakes by Oregon. Oregon State hits some explosives. The defense for Oregon State maybe takes advantage of, like, I don't know, Dante Moore has been so money with his decisions and where he's put the football. Like, unless we see him suddenly throw the ball to the other team a bunch of times. And he did throw 3 picks against Oregon State when he was benched in 2023. I've kind of termed it as maybe a revenge game, quote unquote, for him. I don't think he'll make those kind of mistakes. But, like, I'm just creating the weird narrative. You have to have all sorts of things you don't perceive as real.
Well, you know, the other thing, too, you mentioned the 2022 and how many mistakes Oregon made. There were a lot. I mean, speaking of punting disasters, how about Oregon dropping a punt at the 1 yard line and giving Oregon State a 1 yard field to drive for a touchdown? Like that wasn't very good. So I think even if Oregon makes 2 or 3 of those mistakes in this one, I don't know that Oregon State has the horses to they could cover. That could be a way for them to cover 35.5 points. I won't be shocked if Oregon State somehow winds up, staying that close. Because think about this: if Oregon wins this game 44-10, that's a cover. That's covering spread. I don't think that's insanely far-fetched because it's a rivalry game. But man, it's just everything is going wrong for Oregon State. Their defense has allowed at least 34 points in every single game. Trent Bray's a defensive guy. That's not where it should be. They are running for 71 yards per game so far this year. I know there was a decent amount of commentary, and I got a lot of questions on the show about that. With regards to Oregon's run defense, I heard Clapp mention it. The run defense wasn't good. I don't know. Was it really as bad as we all thought? Were there explosive run plays? I think there was only 1 or 2 that were over 10 yards against the starters, and it resulted in a grand total of 0 points in the game. So I think that's just where Oregon's at because of the talent gap with their opponents. This should be another one like that. But I think my concern level going into Penn State would be ticking up solidly if Oregon State, whether it's throwing or running, is able to consistently sustain drives. I'm not talking about they come out on script and they go down the field, score a touchdown, and the game's tied at 7, and then Oregon wins, 50-10 or whatever. But if they're able to, once a quarter against the starters, go up and down the field, yeah, that would be concerning. But at this point, I don't know how they do that.
Well, I guess I'd say, like you mentioned that, if remember the first half last year, Oregon State looked pretty competitive. If it was 4 quarters of that and Oregon wins by 20 points. And it feels a different 20-point margin than last week, I think people are going to go into Penn State feeling differently. And frankly, I co-sign your assessment of the run defense and run offense being kind of put on blast this week. I think it's a little overstated. I mean,
I thought the run offense was worse than the run defense by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, except you take away the De'Aaron Hill 66-yarder, there wasn't a whole lot that was working there. And we'll see if that gets. I mean, that I guess that would be something to see if that gets rectified against an Oregon State defense that's been not good either. I mean, that's the thing that's hard here. Here's a question I'll throw back at you. What's actually translatable from this game to Penn State? Because it feels like based on the opponent, it's very few things.
What's translatable? You're playing football.
Mm-hmm.
But that's.
Then there's not a lot.
I don't think there's is there an NFL guy on the Oregon State defense? Here's one. Malik Murphy is capable of making the same caliber of throws as Drew Aller, both in the good sense and in the bad sense. Malik Murphy has a legit arm, can make legit. Does he have time to set up downfield shots? Does he, is he able to have open receivers against this Oregon secondary? We'll see. That remains to be seen. I think that's probably the most translatable element whenever we assess this game. Malik Murphy's a guy. He was one of the top 5 quarterbacks to move in the portal this offseason. Easily. I think you'd have John Mateer, Carson Beck, probably Darian Mensah who replaced him. I kind of think it was not the greatest transfer portal quarterback class. So I think that
Jaron Chiave's not going to count.
No, he does not count. That guy is so good.
He's so good.
He's
better than Blake Murphy right now. I don't have any doubt.
JKS is a top 10 quarterback in college football. He might not be outside the top 5.